Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Arthritis at Home. I am so stoked to have on today with me Spencer O'Brien. Spencer O'Brien is, as I think a lot of you know, is a Canadian snowboarder. She's a two-time Olympian, and she's the winner of 5 Winter X Games medals. She got a lot of hardware hanging around her neck. Spencer is born in Alert Bay, British Columbia, and grew up as a member of the Haida Kwakwakw'wakw First Nation, and learned from her mother that creativity and strength should guide her life. She has done exactly that. She is now a 13-year veteran of the Canadian national team. She's taken her leadership responsibilities to heart. She's been involved with the N7 Fund to support Aboriginal youth sport in Canada, being a founding ambassador of that initiative. She works directly with the First Nation Snowboard team and is also an active part of the Women's Sports Foundation and has done volunteer work with the Alliance for Climate Education. So this ain't no shrinking violet, people. Help me welcome Spencer O'Brien. Hi, Spencer.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited and also deeply concerned by the events that have unfolded. And I don't want to say awakening of the inequities specifically to Indigenous health of Canadians, because it's not that we just woke up to them. They have been there, but the laser sharp focus on doing something about them finally in a systemic way, I think has really come into focus, not just because of the murder of George Floyd and so many that we're reading about in mainstream media, but those that are happening right here in Canada. There seems to be this notion sometimes on the part of Canadians that racism ends south of the border, and it's simply not true. So I thought, Spencer, where we could start our discussion with you was for you to tell us about the community that you belong to. Where are your roots? Describe them to us and tell us why they're so special, but why they should be special to all Canadians.
Yeah, I was born in Alert Bay. It's a very small, predominantly Native community off of Port McNeill, so off the northern part of Vancouver Island. And I lived there till I was 4 years old. I'm part Kwakwakw'wakw, which is the nation of northern Vancouver Island and part of the mainland, and then also part Haida, which is obviously up in Haida Kwakwakw'wakw. And then I'm also half Irish on my dad's side. He immigrated to Canada when he was very young.
That's the O'Brien.
Yeah, hence the O'Brien and the freckles. But yeah, it was, I mean, amazing those first 4 years of my life in Alert Bay. And then I would spend my summers there when my parents would go commercial fishing. And that place to me is just so special. It will always be home to me. And it's given me, I think, my appreciation for the outdoors. And I think it's why I do what I do. And just why, yeah, I have such an obsession with the ocean and the mountains. And yeah, I feel really honored to be from that place. And as I've gotten older, actually when I was younger, I didn't even know we were part Haida. My great grandmother Ruby was born there, and she moved down the province to Cape Mudge, where she met my great grandfather. And yeah, they lived in Cape Mudge, and then my grandmother moved to Alert Bay, and my grandfather. So yeah, it was really amazing to get up to go up to Haida Kwakwakw'wakw a couple years ago and experience that for the first time. It's such a powerful place, and it was amazing to have to go to a place where a part of you is like where part of you began.
Yeah,
it was really, really special. So definitely starting to feel more of that connection the older I get to the places that I come from.
I know you've been very open, Spencer, about having rheumatoid arthritis. You've been such a tremendous champion in our whole community. As you know, we love you so much for amplifying our voice. But because of this sort of cataclysmic event, murder of George Floyd, and it sparked this protest against what I think most of us recognize, who were willing to be able to stare starkly at our own faces in the mirror, is systemic racism. And we want to know from you how colonialism and systemic racism continues to impact on the life of your community members. It's really important that I think our viewers and all of the public understand where the racism is rooted with respect to your communities.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you really dive deep into like the facts of colonization, it's shocking how long it went on for. And I mean, the last residential school in Canada closed in 1996. Like it's kind of
Like yesterday, basically.
yesterday, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think my whole upbringing, our culture was never at the forefront, but it was never something we were made to be ashamed of.
Right.
I never ever felt like I was ashamed of being Native, but I also didn't take much pride in it. I don't think it was something I like, yeah, I don't know. It was never something I advertised, I guess. And
You had a whole system around you telling you not to feel proud of that heritage, right?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I don't know. It was almost like, yeah, it was just a part of me, but it didn't sway me this way or that way. And
Yeah.
I think what really triggered, kind of looking, like you said, like staring in the mirror and really like diving deep into like these feelings of being uncomfortable when I was asked about it, started when my sisters became very involved in our culture. My older sister Megan is a traditional Native weaver. She's a just beautiful, beautiful fine art.
I've seen her shows at the Bill Reed Gallery in Vancouver, and she's stunningly talented.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. And so her finding that kind of sparked it within our whole family of this reconnection to our culture. And I feel like I was kind of resistant to it, to be honest, for quite a few years. And I think
Why? Can you describe why, Spencer?
that's the thing is I didn't really
Didn't know
understand
why.
why
Yeah.
I was like that. I was like, and I think what it is it wasn't until before the first Olympics when all of a sudden I started getting asked like all these questions about my heritage. It was like all of a sudden all anyone cared about was the fact that I was Native. And I was getting asked these questions that I didn't know the answers to. And that made me really uncomfortable. I was like, why don't I know more about this? Why don't I know about this huge part of my life? And that kind of made me really reflect and understand that I had kind of suppressed a big part of myself. That's a very powerful part.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've done a lot of work like with the helps of my sisters to like reconnect to that and to find out that I'm part Haida. I didn't know that until I was like in my 20s, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
Because that's not that far removed. My great grandmother was born there. And yeah, and just to like look deeper into our family. And I think I honestly think like I'm a perfect example of colonization of residential schools. The
Right.
end goal of residential schools was to assimilate the Native population into the majority culture and have their traditions be pushed away. And I think I'm a prime example of someone that was almost that success story. I have family members who went to residential schools, and I'm the generations removed product of that, of someone who doesn't have a deep connection, who didn't have a deep connection to their culture and was almost completely severed from it.
Ace wrote about a topic in a recent post that highlighted how Indigenous patients, if we were to take this conversation now and talk specifically about healthcare, which you do know something about as someone who's had to access the healthcare system, how Indigenous patients, they're actually less likely to seek care due to the experience of racism itself in the healthcare system. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We know that Indigenous populations have higher rates of heart disease, higher rates of diabetes, prevalence incidence rates that are much higher than the general population in a number of different health sort of domains. And so I wonder if you can tell us, while you may not have experienced this, or you may, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but tell us what you've observed in your community in Alert Bay.
Yeah, I think I'm in a very interesting position when it comes to like racism towards the color of your skin. Obviously, I don't look very Native, and most of my life, when people found that out about me, they were kind of shocked, or if they saw my mom, they were like, "That's your mom?" The Irish definitely shows through a bit more. And so I've kind of been in this position of being able to, you know, see when people make jokes or stereotypes when they don't think that anyone in the room is Native.
Ah,
And I think that's also served me in the fact that I've never felt that kind of racism firsthand. I've never felt discriminated against based on the color of my skin. Um, but I think what's happened to like the place that we've been in for quite a while is that a lot of people, yeah, asleep is kind of a weird word, but I feel like the status quo was so accepted that everything was kind of good enough.
yeah,
For kind of all minorities. I think even like you look at like Time's Up and like equal pay for women and Black Lives Matters, what the Wet'suwet'en have been fighting for, and it's kind of like always been this like, okay, well, we're kind of there, so let's not
yeah,
rock the boat.
yeah,
And I think as a culture and as a society, everyone's kind of just has been accepting that and turning a blind eye to a lot of things. So I think for a lot of First Nations people, I would imagine when you go to a hospital, if you feel some sort of discrimination, it's maybe was never enough for them to feel like they wanted to speak up about it.
yeah,
It was like a snide comment or like some smaller form of racism
yeah,
that they just didn't speak up about. And then you're in a position where you're like, well, why would I put myself in that position again? Like, I'm just not going to go, or I'm not going to seek help.
yeah. And that's why I say it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. Yeah. So
And
then your health outcomes just continue to decline because you're not seeking help, because when you do seek help, you're treated in a racist way.
yeah, or you don't feel like you're getting the help that you deserve or that other people are getting. And I think too, when you look at a lot of First Nations communities, they are in very, very rural areas. A lot of reservations in Canada don't even have like clean drinking water. There's so many problems that go so much deeper than just simply being discriminated against, that are just built into the Indian Act.
So what is it we can do?
I think a huge thing for like non-Indigenous Canadians is just educating yourself. I mean, so much of our history as a nation is not taught in schools, and that's a huge thing, is that people just don't know about it. They don't know like that residential schools went into the 90s. Like, they don't even know what a residential school is or what happened at them. And I think in order to have compassion for a minority, you need to also understand what they've gone through and what's happened in the past. So I think that's a big thing, is I think that this history needs to be taught in schools, and it should be something that every Canadian's aware of and educated on. Because from there, then you can start to move forward. And I mean, each reservation and each nation is different in what their needs are. But to me, like, the status quo of what the government does for Indigenous people, it to me, it feels a lot like throwing money at the problem. And it's not helping. It's not improving healthcare for First Nations. It's not improving post-secondary success rates for Indigenous communities, and it's not uplifting the many success stories from those communities either. So yeah, I don't know. It's a huge. It's like you said, it's like a big package to unpack.
Don't worry, I wasn't going to commit you to solving the problem for all of Canada, not today anyway.
And I think for most people, it's honestly just like being open and being open to want to learn and to want to know those things. And even for myself, I mean, this has opened up my eyes to a lot of things, and I'm trying to educate myself too. I mean, just because I'm First Nations doesn't make me an expert, you know. But it has made me want to stand up for who I am and where I come from, and it's made me feel a responsibility to that. So.
You know, I wanted to just talk to you, Spencer, a little bit about what it's like being an Indigenous woman and a professional snowboarder. You know, you've talked about, I know to me in the past, other times we've had the good fortune to speak, you've talked to me about how you viewed snowboarding. I mean, yes, you obviously love it. Yes, it's where you're at home on the snow, on a board, way high up in the air doing crazy things. But talk to us a little bit how, as you grew up in the sport, as you established, you know, your leadership, your dominance, how did you, I don't mean dominance in a weird way, by the way, I mean just your performance excellence. Um, how do you view snowboarding as an Indigenous woman, and what is it you're trying to do uh, to amplify not just the Indigenous voice in general, but in snowboarding?
Yeah, snowboarding is so interesting because it is not a diverse sport
Yeah.
at all. Um, there's very few people from minorities that participate in it, and it is just such an inaccessible sport due to the price of it.
Yeah.
I feel very lucky that my dad was a commercial fisherman, and he was able to go spend all winter with us riding. But I'm obviously, yeah, a unique scenario. And today it just keeps getting more and more expensive. So
Yeah.
it's harder and harder for people who are financially challenged to even get into the sport. Um, but yeah, I think it was a very interesting time for me when my heritage kind of became like a talking point in conjunction with my snowboarding. I almost at first was like, no, like I don't want to be known as like the native snowboarder. I
Yeah.
want to be known for my snowboarding, and for it doesn't matter who I am or where I come from. Like all that matters is the snowboarding. Um, but yeah, as I got older and started to get more involved with various organizations like Nike and Seven, and I started to see like so many more amazing Indigenous athletes, I just found myself being like, wow, I wish I like had these people to look up to when I was younger. I wish I knew about them because I know they were there, but I just just didn't hear about them.
Yeah.
And I heard a speech once, and the woman talked about in regards to like specifically stereotypes in Native communities that bad news travels around the world twice before good news has a chance to put on its shoes.
Oh, wow. That's so true.
And I was like, wow, that is like so eye-opening, and it's so true. It's like, you hear all the bad things so much, and I think when you come, from a small town or a tiny community, like that's all you hear.
Yeah.
You hear the bad statistics, you hear the stereotypes, you are bombarded with them, when what those communities need, to me, is to be uplifted, and they need to hear the success stories, because there's so many of them. There's so many incredible Indigenous people who've done amazing things. And that kind of made me realize that it was super important for me to also be a role model, because I wanted to be like how I viewed those athletes. I wanted to be that for other kids, and to share with them what sport gave me, because it gave me so much.
Remaining minute or two here, if you could talk to us about anything you wanted to talk to us about, are there messages that you want to get out? Part of this conversation is about making what you want us to know about happen. And so, what would you say to your fellow Canadians today, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of Black Lives Matters and this incredible, powerful move against racism and amplifying anti-racism activities? What would you say?
I think, I don't know, I want people, myself included in this, just to be open to educating themselves and to seeing a new way. I think as a society, we've all kind of had our heads in the sand, and I think there isn't, I don't know, I hate when I feel like people are feeling ashamed
Yeah.
just because they're white, or any, no one should feel ashamed of who they are.
Yeah.
And the atrocities of the past are not our current generation's fault, but it is our fault if we don't choose to rectify it and to make some changes. So I don't want people to feel ashamed of who they are ever. But I do want everyone to be open to hearing these stories, and hearing stories around Black Lives Matters and Indigenous Lives Matters, and what's happening within our own nation with regards to the Wet'suwet'en and the pipelines, and just be open to hearing these stories and to learning for yourself. I think it's super important, and I think there shouldn't be any guilt or shame pushed on people right now. I think it's really just about doing the work for yourself, and that is going to contribute to the whole. And I think, and I agree with you when you said that, like, you want to hear more athletes speak up, because I think a lot of people, when you're in sports, or you're known for one thing, I get that all the time. Stay in your lane.
Yeah.
It's like,
What?
This is my lane. This is everyone's lane. We're all humans.
What a weird thing to say to a snowboarder who has no lanes.
That's like people's favorite thing to say to a snowboarder whenever anyone talks about climate change. They like to bring up the fact you use airplanes. And they tell you to stay in your lane because all you are is a snowboarder, and that's all you should be allowed to speak to.
Yeah, and okay, well,
it's a human thing, so it's all of our lanes.
We're not going to listen to that advice, are we? Yeah,
no.
Life is our lane, and human beings are all in the same lane, I think, and so we have lots to do for each other in the way of fighting for each other, supporting each other. Spencer, I know you've got to get to your training session. I'm so indebted to you, as I always am when I speak to you. We'll have to get a bike ride in when you come back home. We'll see how fit you get over there. See if you can plow this old lady into the ground on your bike.
Oh, I don't know. You're pretty fast. I haven't been riding much. I have to get back on it. I brought it out here, so.
Oh, good girl. Okay. Well, listen, we look forward to following along. Spencer can be found, folks, on throughout social media, obviously on Instagram. She posts incredible stories. She posts incredibly empowering, uplifting, and insightful messages about where we are today in terms of Black Lives Matter, Indigenous Rights Matter, all of these things that we've talked about today and many more. She's also on Twitter, Spencer O'Brien. She's the one with the blue authentic tick next to her name. So please join me in commenting, favoriting, liking, and messaging us your views on this discussion. Spencer, thank you so much. You are just one of my personal heroes. I just love what you're doing. I wish you the best of luck in your training there, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much, and thanks for all you guys are doing for everyone with arthritis during this time.
We're listening and we're learning and we're acting, we hope, in the right ways. And please let us know if we're not, or what we can do that would be better.
No, this is awesome. You guys are doing a great job, and just grateful for everything you guys do. I mean, as a woman, as an Indigenous woman and a woman with arthritis, it means a lot.
Thank you very much. Okay, you be safe.
Thank you too.
Bye. Bye, everyone.